All right. Hi, my name is Lee Sabo. I had the pleasure of meeting Ender and John remotely. They presented last year with us at Ignite about their journey to Microsoft 365, Office 365 E3. And they did a fantastic presentation that frankly got the best scores of anything that we had ever put on at Ignite. So we invited them to come on back and give us a checkpoint a year in of what they've learned about how they've journeyed to a modern workplace. So with that, in this very intimate room, I will hand it over to them and let them move forward.
So good morning, everyone. Feel free to move a little bit closer if you want. There's plenty of seats for everyone.
Prizes for all.
So just quickly for anyone who doesn't know, TalkTalk is, we're a broadband operator in the UK. We have about 4 million customers. We're a value provider. There's some very big, very expensive operators in the UK. We work at the other end of the market where we work with the value end, which means particularly as an organisation, we have to be very clever in the way that we work. It's about working smarter, not working harder. It's about getting the most out of the technologies and the services that we provide to our colleagues. So I'm the Director of Colleague Systems. I run all the internal IT within TalkTalk. John's the Technical Project Manager for Office 365. I could say one of the smartest things I did when I started the Office 365 program was actually to hire John to come and run it for me, and he has done an outstanding job. So our journey, I've been with TalkTalk now for about 2.5 years, and I have to be honest, I was brought in to change the way internal IT was run. When I joined, IT was not an enabler. We were seen almost as a blocker to the business. None of this would be particularly new to any of you, but we were running 5 versions of Windows, everything from XP through Windows 10. Our laptop portfolio was something like 15 devices. We were supporting every type of mobile phone system. We had 2 or 3 different versions of Office, several different versions of Outlook. Everything was on premise. We were using Enterprise Vault for mail because we were only, for example, having 250 meg mailbox limits, which meant 30% of the calls every week into the service desk were people asking for bigger mailboxes, which is quite a lot of people who have a lot of disruption, a lot of trouble when they were working. This meant there was very, very little confidence in what we were doing as technology and why we were doing it, actually. So we had quite a bad reputation. So we had a choice at that stage, and the choice was either revolution or evolution, and we chose revolution. Evolving what we had was not going to give us the organisation behaviours the way we wanted to work. So how we created a program that was called Next Generation Working. We were very fortunate as part of this program that we were, as well as doing this technology, we were looking at new offices. So we were moving into a fantastic new campus site near to where we'd previously been, consolidating down a number of office spaces, and actually starting to say, what do we want this to feel like? So we started this beautiful old disused warehouse, and we could literally design it from scratch, design the spaces, the ways of working. And for example, one of the big things we did actually with the flexible working was we made a very conscious decision on day one that we would have 30% less desks than the number of colleagues we had working in the building. We did a big decision. We wanted to force 1/3 of our colleagues to work differently from the day one we moved into this office, and we did that by not providing them a desk. Sounds a little bit harsh, but if you actually want to move to flexible working and different ways of working, sometimes you need to make that kind of tough driver, and that worked really, really well for us.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things we did was actually try and identify the core tools which have burning issues that Andrew mentioned. So instead of trying to deploy the whole E3 suite, which is what we had access to at the time, and then essentially not be able to give each of the products in that suite the focus that we wanted to, we focused on the 4 platforms that had the most burning issues, and it's a common list: Exchange, Skype, OneDrive, because you couldn't share files, and people were using Dropbox. And once that data's in Dropbox, it's gone forever. And then Intune to give us visibility over our mobile estate, because our mobile estate was like the Wild West. It was just crazy out there. We had no control over it. So by limiting our focus to those sort of 4 core products, we were actually able to make sure that we delivered them exceptionally well, rather than just go for sort of feature overload and chuck a load of stuff out there and let people get on with it.
But actually what we did, and my title gives it away, Director of Colleague Systems, we put people and we put our colleagues at the centre of what we were doing. We made sure as we started to talk about this programme, and actually we designed this programme, firstly, the executive board sponsor for this programme was actually our Chief People Officer, not our Chief Technology Officer, because actually this is a people programme. It doesn't matter, we could have done this technology and done it really well, but if we hadn't actually put the people at the heart of what we were trying to do, then it was not going to be a success. So there was a lot of effort went into our colleagues about what's in it for them, why this is important, how it's going to feel, how we want them to feel, making it feel personal to them, targeted comms, very different to the way that an IT program is traditionally rolled out. And actually, this was one of the reasons why this program was so successful in the way we did it.
Yeah, and the other thing we did was we started to engage teams really early. So unlike in the past where IT has sort of gone to security at the last minute and on a Friday and said, surprise, this is coming on a Monday, and sort of puts them on the back foot. What we did was we made sure that we engaged with security and HR and legal as early as possible. We made them have a seat at the table. They got invested in the project and became stakeholders in it. And what we found was actually engaging them really early made the whole journey a lot smoother rather than sort of running up last minute, especially with a massive business change program like Microsoft 365.
And actually the last bit was what we realised as we did this was what we had before being so dispersed. We actually took a step back and looked and said, we effectively only have 3 core types of users in our business. We have consumers of content, we have creators of content, and we have developers. And we took back and said, how do we want each of these different groups of individuals to work? What technologies do we want? What do we need to provide them with? What services do they want? And we were really granular in this. So, for example, one of the big things being with flexible working, with mobile working, was you don't need to spark up your laptop if you want to check your emails in the evening, for example. You can do it on your mobile phone. So we really then get into analysing what size mobile device do we give them. Because the 4.5-inch screen devices we were giving out previously were not adequate devices if you wanted to say to someone, you can do your emails on your phone in the evening. So we really got into looking and saying, we'll give people 5.5-inch devices, bigger devices that actually meet the needs for people to work in a mobile way. All sounds really simple, but there were really quite large challenges along the way.
Yeah, we had a significant number of challenges, predominantly the fact that, excuse me, that we had 40,000 mailboxes for a 2,500 user organization. So clearly mailbox deletion wasn't high on anyone's priority. And that was causing a huge excess on our storage, on our platform. And really, it was impossible to migrate with that volume. We really had to clean house massively before we could even think about the migration. We also found that we had 35 email domains on our Exchange environment, half of which weren't actually assigned to any mailboxes and not even used, some of which we didn't even own. So we had email domains on our Exchange servers that belonged to somebody else. So God knows what they were doing there. We found we had 60,000 odd public folders, a number of them being used as shared mailboxes to send email from. And unfortunately, we had no idea which ones were active, which ones were, valid, and we had to sort of take a guess at the ones we thought and then migrate and just sort of see what happened, because there's no way we could audit 60,000 public folders at all. We also had, obviously, issues with, like everybody does, issues with comms uptake. People get bombarded by emails every day, and they just don't read email from comms. It's as simple as that, or they might skim read it. So we had to look at other ways to get that message across. We also wanted to make sure that post-deployment, there was an ongoing comms plan. We didn't want to just have this service deploy the core products, and then everyone forgets about it. So we very much tried to ensure that we not only had an ongoing comms plan about new services, but we picked products for feature highlights to tell users how they can better use the services we've already deployed. And one of the things we actually found when we started doing this was we'd engage with a partner and we'd also engage with FastTrack. And initially, when I came on board to run this, I thought there'd be a bit of a clash there. I thought this is going to be a bit of a challenge because you've got 2 people sort of vying for similar pieces of work. And what we actually found was that they really complemented each other, provided you used them for their strengths and their right purposes. So FastTrack which is, free service, which is fantastic, and, it's hard to argue with free, did all the heavy lifting. They did the migration schedules, they did the moving of the mailboxes, they did all the completion of the mailbox migration jobs, and took that load away from our internal IT guys. What the partner brought was a lot of the architectural experience. Not only, you've got guys here that have done it to 1, 2, 3, 4 companies. What a partner can bring is just a breadth of experience across hundreds of companies. And it was great to know that we could give them a piece of work, a contained piece of work, and they'd come back and they'd deliver it really well. So what we found was actually working with both of them helped take a lot of load off our internal IT guys, and then they were skilled up from the partner as well.
I think I just want to add there when you talk about the FastTrack. I think FastTrack is probably the best kept secret within Microsoft. They are a phenomenal team. They do, and they don't just do Outlook. They don't just do 365. We're engaged at the moment. We're looking at some SharePoint migrations, some file share migrations, and some of the quotes we've gone out and spoken to other third parties, and some of these conversations have started at £500,000, £600,000, £700,000 to do a migration of our SharePoint estate to SharePoint 365. The FastTrack team are like, yeah, this is what we do for free. There are lots of different FastTrack teams, and you need to look at these teams and use these teams as best you can. This is what these guys do day in, day out. But also, as John said, it's very, very hard to argue with free when you're looking at the FastTrack team. So when it came to implementation, as I said earlier, it was all about the people. We did an awful lot of comms when we were talking about it. It really was focused on the what's in it for you, how will it feel different, why will it feel different, giving examples of what your day may be like if it's flexible working. If you used to spend an hour and a half every day driving to the office in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening, actually you don't have to drive into the office. You can get up at the same time, you can check your emails, you can then have breakfast with your kids. You can take your kids to school. You can work. You can even be there when your kids come home, go and kick the football around the garden for half an hour, do some work, do some more work afterwards, and then actually finish your day earlier than you'd have got home, but still work the same amount of time. This then presented a few challenges to us. So we really had to start to look at actually some of our people processes. Because where some people come and go, this is brilliant, I want to work 11 o'clock at night to 7 a.m. the next day. We're like, that's great, but none of your colleagues will be online, so that's going to make collaboration with them a little bit difficult. So we had to look at things like core working hours, and we came up with a policy that was we have core working hours which are 10 till 3, which means even within the world of flexible working, unless you're a shift worker, you are expected to be online between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day, because that is the core working hours of the organisation. Outside of that, we're grown up enough to let our colleagues choose how and where and when they choose to work. And we don't monitor them. We don't use Link or Skype as a pseudo time card system or anything else like that. We've really changed to be a results-driven organisation, which is really, really key if you're going to do this. And one of our big mottos with this is work is what you do, not where you go. And if you follow that, when you start to look at that, that is actually really, really key in this.
Yeah, and as I said, so how we did it, we had to have a solid comms plan, but we knew that it would have to extend beyond emails. So we did things like putting stands in restaurants at lunchtime and sitting in the reception rooms with people in really bright purple T-shirts, so they were very obvious, to try and talk to people, to engage with them, to make sure they knew the sort of changes we were about to be driving through the business and why these changes were coming into the business. And as Andrew said, it was very user-centric. It was all about why this is great, why you should be encouraged and excited by this change we're driving through. Because we hadn't had a business change program like this in TalkTalk for a long, long time. What we also did was we made sure we ran multiple pilots. We're not a resource-heavy organisation, so I didn't have the luxury of just giving 3 people the job of sorting out the pilot or the migration process. So everyone had to wear multiple hats. So what we had to do was actually run mini migrations again and again and again. And each time we'd iterate, we'd find a problem, we'd improve something, we'd go again, some more and less people and more. So we'd go again and again and again. And each time we'd fix something. And what that meant was we actually had when we came to the migration process, we had a really good understanding of exactly how it would run and what it would do. And we did the obvious things, you know, the things that everybody knows and does, grouping teams in shared mailboxes, managers, PAs, moving together. I think one of the most difficult things we had to do was enforce migration dates, because we needed a predictable, stable migration schedule. And what we did, unless you were the ExCo, which is the top 15 people in the organization, your date was your moving date. No discussion, you know, unless there was a significant business impact because you were in finance and, you know, you potentially couldn't work. We enforced the dates massively, and it was really, really important that we did that. You know, nobody wants, as soon as you start to give people the option to change their dates, it just becomes chaos. Everyone wants to request a particular time to move, and you cannot predict your events. So that was really important. And I think the final thing we did, which was great, was we hired these floor walkers. And it seems like a really simple idea, but each office had 3 floor walkers and an SME who the floor walkers could escalate problems to. And their benefit was incredible to the project. These were just, you know, normal guys, bit of experience, and they walked around the building wearing these lovely purple T-shirts that we got for everybody. And I still haven't apologized enough for those purple T-shirts. But from a user perspective, it was great because they didn't take the time they would need to call the help desk to have an engineer to come around and fix them. They were up and running far quicker, working far better than they would have been if they'd have had to call the service desk. But also from a service desk perspective, it just took a massive load off and a huge amount of pressure off those guys, you know, over a 5-day migration event. And the floor walkers, I think, were just absolutely invaluable to the success of this project.
They really were, and I think this was part of a multi-million-pound program with the new offices, all the technology in the new offices. Yet probably the £7,000 to £8,000 I spent on these floor walkers was the most sensible, best value investment I made in this entire program. People just want to put their hand up and go, I need some help, and somebody coming over and helping them rather than logging a ticket, getting a response in 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. People were up and running. And why we did this was this was key. This wasn't just about 365. This wasn't just about new ways of working. We had these new offices. We needed everything to work basically on the same day, in the same way, for every colleague to have the same experience. It wasn't acceptable for the first 100 people to migrate to be perfect and the last 100 people to migrate to have a really lumpy experience. Everyone had to have the same consistent experience. And actually the result of this effort, lots of sleepless nights, lots of late nights, lots of repetitive processes, was actually, this was, and this still remains to date, the most successful IT implementation inside TalkTalk. After we migrated, more people actually phoned the service desk and saying, yeah, everything works this morning. I'm assuming my migration didn't take place last night because everything works. Then actually phone the service desk saying, it's broken, nothing works. We had no service issues for any colleagues raised throughout the entire process. The only heads up on that I would actually say is Intune was probably the most lumpy experience. There were a few things we learned, different versions of Android, other stuff like that. Intune, we learned Android phones need to be 50% powered up before you can encrypt an Android device in Intune. Some of these things still, even with all the migrations, all the tests we did, hadn't come through. But by having floor walkers and somebody had to raise your hand, people just felt comfortable that actually what we were doing was done right, and they felt it was personal. So,
yeah, it was great to see. Actually, we've got a demand for more now in the business, which is brilliant. So when we deployed these 4 services, we realized we were moving from a very stable base. We deployed them very well, if I do say so myself. And there was now a lot of confidence in the business from us, which was great to see. And it was brilliant to be a small part of something that helped restore that confidence. But now what we're seeing is far more of a pull from the business than a push from IT. It's not IT going out every 3 years, big upgrade, big upgrade, big upgrade. What we're getting is the business coming to us saying, we've got this problem. This is a concern of ours. How can you help us with this? What services can you deploy as part of the 365 program to help us with our current business problems?
Yeah, and I think actually when you look at flexible working and say, well, we never set any targets to say what we thought flexible working would look like in terms of how do you judge it to be a success. And I think if anyone can come out with a formula that says people collaborate better and it's the value is X, Y, or Z on the back of doing these things, that person will be fated as a genius forever because it's a very subjective thing. But if you look in our world at some of the cold, hard statistics of where we are, 15 months on from finishing the core migration to the 365 toolset, Skype usage is up 500% within our business. Email usage is down 50%. We are really starting to see massive, almost month by month, decrease in the amount of email. And people are using Skype. They're using IM as a real-time communication platform. People have realized email is not there for real-time communication, which is really, really good to see that. And we can start to see the amount of calls, sessions on Skype that start off as chat and then become voice or video, and the amount of sessions where people are sharing desktops rather than sending an email around with a presentation in to 20 people to attend a call and things like that. But actually, the whole target of the flexible working with with less desks, our physical footprint is 30% less than it was when we started this piece of work. Put this into context, in most organizations, after people, your real estate is your next biggest cost. If you can reduce that by a third without impacting how colleagues work, that is a significant saving to the business. And we've done that. And actually, our colleagues, we could probably reduce that even further if we really wanted to now. And we are starting to look at that as colleagues are really starting to embrace true flexible working.
Yeah, and the simple fact is, just by moving to these services, we're a more secure organisation. There is no doubt about that. We are far more secure than we've ever been with our core line of business platforms. And essentially, there is nobody better to host these services than the people that write the code. You know, this isn't our job. Give it to someone who is. And we've implemented things like geofencing now, which was fantastic. So we now only allow access to all our services from a list of 26 approved countries, which has immediately reduced our attack footprint significantly. You know, and I firmly believe that a lot of these hackers, unless it's a targeted attack, are just after a quick entry, a quick win, quick probe. Can they get in? Yes, they can. If they can't and they hit a blocker, they're going to move on to somebody else. And quite frankly, just blocking anything other than these 26 countries has really, really helped reduce the number of alerts we get, the number of concerns we have. Our MDM platform, as we said before, it's given us far more control. We can now stop data leakage between managed and non-managed applications. We can remote wipe devices. We can limit the number of devices people sync. In the old world, somebody had 17 devices syncing in their Exchange account. You know, I mean, just 17? Crumbs. But now we limit it to 3. We can stop jailbroken. We can stop rooted devices, you know, things we couldn't do before. And you know, the final 2, ATP and safe links, actually caused us to switch focus. When we wrote the E5 business case, we predicated it on voice and the removal of Cisco from the estate. But what we actually found was that, you know, voice is going to take a bit of time. It needs to be done right. So there was actually 2 services here that we could deploy really quickly. And what happened was, just after we purchased the E5 licenses, we had an incident, a security incident. A user received an email with a malicious link in it, and they clicked on it, and bad things started happening to their computer. They then forwarded that email to their manager and said, something odd happens when I click on this link. What happens when you click on it? And their manager clicked the link as well. Again, bad things happen to their computer, big security incident, accounts disabled, machines isolated, and at which point we're able to go to security and sort of say, we've got something for you. We can stop this. You know, and SafeLinks was incredibly simple to deploy and provided a massive security benefit with minimal user impact really, really quickly. My only wish is we'd have actually purchased the licenses months ago, and we wouldn't have even had this incident because we would have deployed it. And ATP as well, I expected so much noise about ATP. Like Andrew said, people expect email to be a real-time comms tool. It isn't. If you need to send an email, a document to somebody and they need it immediately, there are better ways to do it than email. But unfortunately, people's mindset is email is immediate. So when we sort of introduced ATP with this delay in scanning attachments, I was really worried. However, the upshot is no noise at all. It's been accepted universally, and it's gone down really, really well. In actual fact, our CEO said to us, every time I get an email with an attachment and I see the ATP scanning process, I don't know what it's doing, but I feel safer for the fact that it's doing something. And if she can be happy with it, there is no reason everyone else in the company can't be happy with it as well.
I think geofencing was an interesting one because we put geofencing in, and then suddenly I got a call the next day from our security department going, do you know where our CFO is? And I was like, well, is she not in her office? And they're like, no, someone's trying to access her account from Oman. And I was like, well, here's an idea. Maybe she's in Oman on holiday. And actually, that is exactly what happened. It was a blocked country, but our security team had picked up what they thought was an unauthorized access from mine. And actually turns out that, one, my job is not to know where the CFO is all the time. And actually, two, that actually the geofencing was doing the right thing, and actually the processes we put in place to alert it worked. We could go and lift that bar for her account straight away, but actually, had that been an erroneous attack, that would, being as she was our CFO, that would not have got into our estate, which was a really great way. Her PA panicked for a little bit, but when we explained everything and smoothed it over, she came back, she was really grateful, there wasn't any big scene or anything else like that. She was like, I know why you did this, I feel better. But actually, there were some other unexpected benefits from this. If any of you guys are from Europe and you've gone through the pain of GDPR compliance over the last 12 to 15 months, we, as part of Office 365 with OneDrive, was moving a lot of our colleague data from file shares on premise into the Office 365 perimeter. And what we found was actually e-discovery within 365 is such a fantastic tool when it comes to GDPR and responding to SAR requests. Again, we were out talking to the likes of IBM and other third parties about tools to scan our file shares. And those conversations were starting with numbers that were £600,000, £700,000, £800,000 for a tool to scan your file shares. We completed the migration of the data into 365. We get that with e-discovery in a far better, far simpler format, which is fantastic, and the responses come back a lot quicker. A couple of things that did really surprise me around our tool sets. One was Power BI. I didn't quite realize how frustrated people were and how much people had wanted to be able to create dashboards and just weren't able to create dashboards. We put Power BI Pro in, and we gave it to wasn't that many people, 25, 30 people to start with.
That.
Within a week, it was like 100 people wanted it, and then 200 people wanted it.
Crazy.
And all of these dashboards that people wanted and wanted to share data and combine data, suddenly they were able to do these things that they've always wanted to be able to do with data and present data, just hadn't got the right tools to be able to do that. And actually, the inner geek in me particularly love and really happy to see the uptake of my analytics. When we moved everyone to E5, everyone started getting those little emails on a Monday saying, here's your My Analytics email for last week, this is the meetings you had, everything else. And we left it at that. Within a few weeks, the CTOs were going, this would be great, but what if we could roll this up and see this for the whole organization? We're like, oh, you want workplace analytics? So we started looking at workplace analytics, and it's really great because now, when we're looking at organizational constructs, when we're trying to make decisions about organizations, about demand and everything else, we're actually able to make those discussions, those decisions and have those discussions using real-time MI. Previously, it was always like, it was very subjective. I spent my entire week in meetings. I do 100 meetings. Well, if you do 100 meetings, I must do 200 meetings a week and so on. And actually, My Analytics and Workplace Analytics has really allowed us to start to understand how our organization works, what goes well and what goes badly. So what's next on this? Office 365 it's never a closed book. There's always a new service, a new iteration, a new product, something being refreshed. So with the core and non-core apps was quite a contentious point, I think, with us when we looked at it. Yeah. You've got this massive wheel of all these Office 365 services, and there's probably a service there that somebody in our business will want that service. But as a very small IT team, we can't support all of these applications. So we made a decision very early on between core and non-core services. So core services are the services that if you phone our service desk and say, I've got a problem, we can support you. Non-core services are services we will make available to you, but if you get a problem, it needs to be self-help, Google, Bing, YouTube, whatever, to try and find out how to fix that problem. As we move forward, I think I'd like to see us bring more services from non-core into core, but that takes time, training, upskilling the service desk. But actually, we didn't want to block our colleagues from being able to access these tools and services, so we worked really hard on core and non-core. We've changed our roadmap, as John alluded to, when we were upgrading from E3 to E5. E5 was purely predicated on voice. Getting rid of Cisco, security was nice to have. We switched that around 180 degrees, got E5, switched security on. The whole voice replacement piece is still going on. We are going to do that, but actually, we've changed our roadmap, we've changed our priorities. There are new things on our roadmap. My Analytics, Workplace Analytics is new. And actually, I think the biggest thing for us, what's next, and John will talk about Teams in a minute, it was we're starting to say, in this flexible world, things like Windows Desktop, autopilot, all of these things to start to say, how can we then now get the next evolution out of this? But the biggest thing, and this launches next month actually for us, is Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, so as Andrew said, Teams is the next big thing for us. It really is. And it's taken longer than I would have hoped to get here. But because it was such a big product and had such potential to change the organization, we needed to make sure we had the right level of governance and control and service around it. And I think that came even more evident when we started looking at it for voice. When we started the voice program, initially we were going to deploy voice on Skype. But with all the announcements from Microsoft, we didn't really want to deploy voice on Skype and then 2 years later have to move it to something else. So we started looking at how we can get into Teams. The initial problem was that, well, we're a telco. We're not going to buy call packages from Microsoft, let's be honest. There's no way we could get a business case through for that. So when they did the Direct Connect, bring your own trunk tap, we participated. And what it allowed us to do was then literally just bring a trunk straight from 365 into our SBCs and route calls out over our own network. And that was absolutely the killer feature. But what it meant was that we needed to make sure we got Teams really, really right. Because if we got it wrong, especially with voice, the whole thing would be tarnished. People really do expect that level of dial tone reliability with voice. But we also knew that we couldn't just chuck Teams out there. We needed a proper governance model in place. And part of the problem is that we wanted to make sure there was some structure around it. So we wanted to use the native tools wherever possible. So what we did was we implemented Azure AD group naming standards. So the underlying group has a particular symbol in front of the name of it, so they're all isolated in the address book. Very easy to explain to users what they're there for, whereas the problem previously would be you've got two, if you don't implement the naming standards, you potentially have a distribution list and a team of the same name, and it just confuses people. We also implemented group expiry, so every team has a 1-year lifespan based on the group, and at the end of it, if you don't renew it, your team's gone. End of story. And part of the reason for that was we didn't want to end up in the same situation we were with mailboxes, where you've got 40,000 of these things in 2 years' time, and no one knows what's in them. They're all orphaned, and no one wants to delete them because they don't know what content's in there, and they're worried about deleting some massively important business document. So what we also did then was also integrated it into our project lifecycle. So as a project goes through our system, one of the artifacts that's spat out at the end of it is a team, with the project manager as the owner, and the name has the unique project reference in it as well, so it all ties back and is auditable. We also knew that we wanted a really good user-driven creation process, but I didn't want that button in Outlook that says new group, or the link in Teams that says new teams, because you know as well as I do, people are just going to go new team, new team, new team, new team for no apparent reason. And again, we're going to end up with a lot of them. So what we did was we actually thought about, could we use Flow for this? Surely this is a great use case for a SharePoint list in Flow. Turns out Microsoft haven't done that yet in Flow, which is really annoying. But what? No, back. What it does do. Oh, they got the wrong presentation. What it does actually do is it goes to show some of the great people out there in the ecosystem around Microsoft. Unfortunately, in the presentation we should have had, there should have been a link in there, but I'll make sure it's in the notes. I posted on the Power Users community. I said, look, guys, wouldn't this be great if, you could create a team through Flow? And I had a few responses saying, yeah, that would be a good idea. And then nothing. And a couple of days later, this guy, who I've never met, have no idea who he is, have had some great conversations with him now, replied and said, I've created a custom JSON for you. Import this into Flow, link it to a Power App. There we go. That'll create your teams for you. So it's just phenomenal that if Microsoft haven't done something, which they really should do this, there are really smart people out there that can do this for you and will really help you. And now we've taken this JSON file and we've implemented it in a production platform, so we now have an auditable, user-driven creation process, but more importantly, it's got approval routes in it. So what happens is a user can go on and request a team's created, and then there's an approval route from their manager or an approval route from IT in order to get that team created. So it gives you the flexibility, but it just means there's that breakpoint in it. It's not that free-for-all for creation. And that was really, really important for us. And I think one of the things this has shown, we've got 300 users on the pilot now, and the feedback is consistently good, which is great. It really is very, very good. And we're hoping that in the next 4 to 6 weeks, it's going to really uptake when we go live.
Absolutely. I was going through last week as we come to the end of the pilot, and we did a post-pilot survey to get feedback from people. And interestingly, one of the biggest comments we got back from colleagues about Teams was game changer. So non-techie people are coming back to us and going, we think Teams is going to be a game changer. So, and I'm totally unprompted. Our people are loving it. So we've got to make sure we do this one just as well as we've done the other part. Or sorry, John needs to make sure he does this as well as he did the previous ones. So coming towards the end of our presentation, where are we? So we're now 12, 15 months on from having completed all of our migrations. We've increased integration, and what I mean by that is we've been able to switch off a whole load of systems, a whole load of servers. We've taken files, shares from being on-premise into the cloud. A lot of the tools and the services that our colleagues now use sit within that 365 perimeter, which means they work better, they integrate better. There's buttons in one set to send, to automatically create things in another, and so on. Productivity. And again, this is really, really hard to measure. Productivity is really, really high. And getting higher and getting better. People are collaborating better. If you think any organization that's seen a 50% reduction in the amount of emails sent over 12 months, the people are going to be far more productive, are going to be collaborating a lot better. And actually, what's really, really good for us is that the confidence has been restored back in colleague IT and IT. People are confident in what we do, why we do it. So when we come along, we're now talking about Teams, there's no pushback from people, there's no conversations going, oh, should we be using product A or product B? There's just a confidence. But the key thing is people are doing this now in a secure way. When before, as John said, we had one colleague who had 17 devices attached to our Exchange platform. No one needs to have 17 devices attached, but that was 17 different times every day. Email was getting pulled out of our system, and we didn't have any idea. But the other side of that, we have reduced the number of suppliers. So particularly like Power BI Pro we've been able to switch off 4 separate reporting tools, which is 4 different support contracts, 4 different sets of licensing agreements, and move everything into Power BI. Moving documents from file shares into OneDrive for Business, we have switched off. We're probably 60 to 70 servers we've switched off now. Getting rid of things like Enterprise Vault. All of these little things, lots of small servers, lots of small amounts, are starting to add up to very large numbers in the amount of actually money and cost of the business we've removed. So colleagues are happy, finance are happy. That's a very, very good place to be as we're coming out of the program. So John, I'll leave the last piece to you.
Yeah. So look, a lot of these are quite obvious, but what I would say is, if you're in a position where you're looking at these services, really use your Microsoft account team. Get really friendly with your TAM and your account director and your ATS, because they will be your gateway to an enormous amount of knowledge and experience, and they will help you tremendously. And the better your relationship with Microsoft, the easier your project will be. You want an account director who you can phone up and say, I need to speak to someone about this, and know that in 24 hours they're going to come back to you with somebody. So really get to know them. And also, there's lots of help out there. Look at FastTrack. It's a great service. It's free. But also look at partners. If you don't have the experience internally, look at partners. And I think the best thing that we found from this was by using both partners and FastTrack, it really freed up our IT staff. They could do the things they did best. They could manipulate the internal systems. They could get the migration as good as they could possibly get, because they're not bogged down with all this other stuff. And also, we mentioned earlier on, engaging early. Speak to legal, speak to HR, speak to security. This is an ongoing program. It doesn't stop. So the better your relationship with these departments, again, the smoother the implementation will be. Once you get security on side especially, everything becomes a lot easier. And if they've got a stake in the game, they're far more likely to engage with you and work with you to deliver this program. And if there's any concerns at all, speak to your account manager with this great relationship you've got with them, and try and get a data center visit. I've been very lucky to do it 3 times, and it's amazing. And every time I've seen a significant change in the technology in the data center. And it really does just show you that there are very few companies on the planet that can invest in the scale that Microsoft are doing this at. But what they'll do is they'll not only give you a phenomenal tour with really knowledgeable people, they'll bring in their security guys, and they'll talk to your security guys in whatever language security guys talk. And they will just quash so many concerns. And I've seen it time and time again when this has happened. So really, if you get a chance to do that, I strongly advise you do that.
I think, yeah, the security one was definitely the one. I think we spent a lot of time at first. We were sitting in the middle between our security team and the Microsoft security team. We were like, this is getting stupid. Just do a data center visit, get them talking security language, whatever, and just get them in the room together. And probably that just cuts so much noise and workload away from us as we started to do this. Security will either be the enabler or the killer to this program if you're coming from as much on-premise as we are to the cloud. So as John said, the data center visit was the killer for us in terms of solving problems and meeting challenges that we had.
We've got prizes if you want. You don't have to leave just yet.
So,
seriously, now it's prizes for all, it really is.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone?
Oh, sorry.
So, Mike, you just going to stand.
Can't hear you amongst the din of people. So at the moment, we're just coming out of our pilot. So at the moment, we've only got 50 people enterprise voice. The plan is in the next 6 to 8 weeks to deploy that across the 2,500 user estate.
You guys found any analytics that is going to help you monitor and manage your enterprise voice?
Yeah, so we're using a couple of tools that I can't for the life remember the name of, but if you want, I'll make sure they're in the presentation that you download. There's 2 tools, one that monitors the end-to-end service from the desktop to the cloud service, and the other one that does the SNMP for the data on the network. And actually, the 2 tools work together to give you an overall picture of the quality of the voice traffic. We're also using the call analytics stuff within 365 as well. But one of them is more of an agent-based ongoing monitoring that constantly checks the platform. And I'll make sure the notes are updated with the name of that product.
Thank you.
No worries.
So we're getting ready to begin our Microsoft 365 rollout. So I'm curious about, with working with FastTrack, did they help you understand what your support should look like, or what your sustainability for supporting stuff within your organization was as part of that engagement?
Yeah, so they kind of helped us with the business change side of things a bit, which was good. I think what was a surprise to me was just the number of services that FastTrack do offer that no one knows about. You know, I think what you need to do is speak to your FastTrack manager and ask them what they can do. Because what we've found out just by talking to them is not only can they do the mailbox migrations, they're now doing our file migrations. They can start to look at SharePoint migration. They can look at the business change thing, but what I would suggest is you speak to your FastTrack manager about what they can offer as well, and they will be business change parts of that.
Thank you.
No worries. Cool. So there are some other great FastTrack sessions as well, which you should absolutely visit. You had to say this. Here we go.
Yeah, and actually, if you've not had enough of John and I by now, at 4 o'clock today, we're over in the Expo Hall, Expo Theatre 11, talking about actually how and why we flipped our E5 business case from being voice predicated to security first.
Yeah. And yeah, so just to say, next slide, this is going to be the embarrassing one. We'd really like you to evaluate our session.
If all 11 of you can evaluate the session, that would be really, really great.
Honestly, it'd be brilliant, because clearly our invite back next year really depends on the 11.
It's not going to, hopefully, if I invite you to Lionton, can we fill a room or not? We're screwed already.
We're really screwed royally. So no, whatever you think, look, you know, and I'll make sure those names of the products are in that slide. I'll make sure our details are in there. If anyone's got any questions, they want to follow up, you know, more than happy to take an email, more than happy, whatever you want, Skype me or Andrew, and we'll answer the questions for you as best we can.
Thank you.
And I wasn't joking about prizes.
So for the 2 people who asked questions, you both got prizes. But there are enough prizes here for everyone.
Seriously, yeah, we're a prize-heavy presentation. No worries, buddy. There we go. How many more we got down there, Andrew?
There is another one. Oh, God, I think we should be giving these out for people just for attending.
Well, it feels that way. Right. Anyone got another question to ask, or is this just going to be a random giveaway?
Oh, look at that.
Come on then, here we go.
We've got prizes and now people want to talk to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go for it.
So you said that your core services that you guys offer, you're looking at some of the non-core services.
Yes.
How are you looking at that from a popularity standpoint? Looking at it from just asking users within the organizations, or how do you go about that?
A bit of everything. So there are some things. So things like Sway. There are a group of people. There are a lot of people coming and going, "I'd like to use Sway. Can we make Sway?" And we're like, "Fine, brilliant. It's not supported, but we will look to bring it into core." There are some we're pushing out. Power BI Pro was not a core. It still is actually not a core supported application, for example, within our business. But there are a lot of people who want it. A lot of it comes to a certain degree from demand from people. People coming in, they've seen stuff, they've been to a session, they've been to a presentation, and someone's gone, "Well, you've got this, you've got that." And that's kind of really where it's come from.
Yeah, we've been really fluid on our roadmap. When we started off, we were very adamant about what we were going to deploy. But then when we sort of started speaking to people and we realized just what the demand for some of these products were, we've sort of rejigged our roadmap to make sure that we can actually deliver the products the business is asking for quicker than we would have maybe done when we were delivering it on the order that we thought people wanted it.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing there is actually,
Thank you.
we were a bit nervous about the core and non-core, saying to people, well, actually, it's not supported. If you have a problem, you need to go and kind of like find a resolution to the problem yourself. Actually, no one's really causing a problem or an issue with that at all. As long as you're open and you're clear when you need to talk about your definition of core and non-core, and go, it's yours, but no one's come back and gone, well, that's not fair. You should be able to answer every question in every service in 365. Well, I've got 6 people on my service desk. Even if I spent the next year training them up, I couldn't have them knowing every answer to every question that's ever going to be raised. So actually, most people are really, really good on understanding that, and just being happy. Given the service, they're happy to go away and learn it. And actually, there are people coming back and helping us and going, I'll do some training videos, or I'll use different tools to like do screen scrape training videos and make. So then we've got this little kind of like community starting to evolve of people who are actually kind of wanting to foster the uptake of these tools in the business. And as I said, I'm producing training videos and other support, and I'm happy to be almost like the SME and the advocate for some of these tools within the organisation too.
Yeah, it's just hard because you create a tenant and you got all sorts of stuff that's enabled. You got to go in there and disable half of it because you can't support half of it.
Absolutely. And actually, some of the tools aren't switched on for everyone. Yeah. Some of the tools are switched on for some people. Some of the tools aren't switched on at all. Yeah, because you do have to be careful. And last year we spoke with the guys from Unilever on stage with us, and they went the other way. They've switched everything on, and Nestle, they've made everything available for everyone, which for them, with several 100,000 people worldwide, that is a massive risk.
We weren't in a position to be able to do that.
No.
And I think one of the things that's changed now by the success of the first couple of phases of the project, because we've restored a bit of confidence in IT, we're actually able to open it up far wider than we were before. If we'd done it first off, it'd be feature overload, no one would know what they're doing, and it would all be chaos. But by building this stable platform of well-delivered products, when we started to open it up, people were much more accepting to that.
We're just about to be kicked out as well.
I know.
Well, congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.